So let's talk about the Deathwing. More so why I like the Deathwing and why I keep painting them, even though most of my guys are now in Legends, and probably aren't tournament legal anymore. When I was a young lad, I was about 16 years old, I first got into Warhammer. There were two brothers that are good friends of mine that I haven't talked to in a while because of life and everything else, but if they ever hear this and watch this video, they know who they are. They have my eternal thanks. But I wanted to get into Warhammer after kind of seeing some stuff on MySpace and hearing about it originally back when I was a young lad when my stepfather wired a Games Workshop store and gave me an old catalog, but figured I'd want to give it a try. At that point I had played Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, so it's kind of a natural progression. I was gifted by these guys a bunch of Space Marine models. Some of them were Blood Angels, some of them were other kind of models we painted up as Dark Angels. I originally wanted a MASH-themed army. I don't know why. I was on a kick about it back then. And I went ahead and had those guys painted up green and figured, instead of playing Black Templars, looking at the Dark Angels. I got a bunch of old codices, and I kind of fell in love with the lore of the entire Legion. Just the super secret knightly order that has secrets that are knights, and the whole hunt for the Fallen. Back in the day, I was involved in some, unfortunately, I'm sad to admit, Gaia Online fanfic, involving some Fallen and other such along those lines. Great times. Anywho, later that same year, when I was about 16, my parents took me to a local game store called Borderlands in Jacksonville, Florida for me to get some models. And I got a Battle from a Crag box set, along with another pack of Terminators, or two, something along those lines. And I had them painted by a guy at the local game store. His name was Ali. Never got his last name, but Mr. Ali did that first group of Terminators for me. Two of the guys in the box set, if you ever noticed by looking at the video, are actually on like 25mm bases. They are a Wolf Guard that were pulled out of a bits box by a buddy of mine that I threw a cape on to make them look different and put them on 25mm bases because it's what I had at the time. So at the end of the day, they probably are not going to work in tabletop, but they're kind of cool to see painted up in my opinion. Moving along. I have all these squads of Terminators. I modeled them all myself, and he painted them, and I can say that they were wonderfully painted. They're definitely old school. It's old hammer. It looks cool. I had those guys in college, played them against Tau consistently, and I gotta say that I do love the Interrogator Chaplain in the Terminator armor. One of my favorite models of all time, period, and I think that's one of my favorite painted models. That's not even one I did myself, and I'm okay with that. So, I've been very intimidated to paint Deathwing ever since because I didn't want to jack it up and mess up the aesthetic of my army with what I would attempt to do. I've gotten more confident over time, especially after doing, what I've been doing now with the hobby. And I figured now is the time. So I started with the first assault cannon dude. I don't know what it is about Terminators and assault cannons. They are a vibe, and I'm all here for it. I prefer the assault cannon to the heavy flamer. That's just me. I'll take the old heavy 4 rending versus, cone of death that may or may not work against some armored opponents. Just my opinion. But I went ahead and got those guys together, and I started painting them up, and I realized over time that I might be able to pull this off and actually make Deathwing look decent. I didn't want to make it look like trash. So I went through my boxes and found that I in fact had a whole bunch of the Forge World Cataphracti, the first runs that I had, and I was going to make them Fallen. Figured it could be fun. And in that same box were my unpainted Deathwing that I assembled during college. I had a whole bunch of Deathwing Knights, a command squad, some other dudes. I'm like, I'll get this pro-painted, send these guys off, have them done right, and have them brought back to me. Well, that never happened because I was a broke college student who made poor choices with money. And I decided that now is the time to actually do it. So the first guy was that assault cannon dude. Learned from him and progressed. I started doing the Deathwing Knights, and halfway through I realized instead of just doing like bleached bone color over top of the Zenithal base, I can take just the soft tone from Army Painter and hit the entire model and get a very similar effect that looks a little bit more battle-worn and battle-scarred, and I've been sticking with that ever since. The recipe for these guys is going to be a base coat in Grim Black Speed Paint, followed by the Darkness or another type of cotton blue gray for a good shadow effect, and then a good white dry brush. I've noticed with the blue-gray undertone, the white will turn out kind of like a blue tinge anyway. It won't be a pure white, which is fine for what we're trying to do here. The soft tone, when it hits, will leave behind that nice tan color. I kind of like the Deathwing to be more tan than bone white anyway, The bone white's a good old hammer look. In my opinion, I prefer the bleached bone color. It just looks more distinct to me than having, say, you know, some white scar Terminators, which sounds like an oxymoron, but actually is a thing, apparently. So I did these guys up, did my Deathwing Knights, which apparently these guys are now legends, but they're awesome sculpts, great models. When I first did the Knights, I had to break some of the shield arms off because, you know, I'm a sub-assembly painter, and I definitely dislike having to paint pre-assembled models like this, especially with tight spaces, but that's okay. I got those guys done, and I've rather enjoyed that so far. I have a couple more left to go in this whole run. I gotta say, doing the Dark Angels banner for the one guy was the most tedious thing I've done painting, I think, in a while. And I hope it looks okay. I think it looks pretty decent overall, but definitely not as good as some others I've seen, and definitely not as good as the old school printing them out on plastic card back in the day. But I kind of like that sculpt had the texture already in it, so it's easier for me to paint, because my freehanding is terrible, guys. Be the first to tell you, I can't freehand to save my life, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, there's something about seeing an army of Terminators. Yes, we cannot run fast. Yes, they cannot do certain things, they can't take certain transports, but dear God, if they get into melee with a squad of Tau, it's going to be fun. There have been many games where it's come down to, I have 5 guys left against 3 squads of Fire Warriors, and I walk away with 3 guys and the other guy does not. Or in some cases, I deploy on the wrong side of the table due to scattering, and I get gunned down before we get close because we're a bunch of big fat guys trying to do big fat guy things up against a bunch of guys who can shoot me from 5 miles away. I'm looking at you, my good friend Mr. Dog Stuff, with your Tau Fire Warriors. Just saying. Oh, and his broadsides, they were fun too. However, when all goes according to plan and you can get up and close, they're great. I will say, I have not played the tabletop game in quite some time. I've thought about getting back into it, but it has not really been a thing I've prioritized. I've still enjoyed just the painting part of it, but maybe I'll do some more painting videos at some point. I'm trying to get a much better setup for my camera than just my cell phone on a rickety cell phone holder. It kind of works, but it's a little shaky, so hopefully that doesn't make anybody seasick. But on top of that, this has been a pretty fun time. I'm doing all the bases in Goblin Green or some variant of that color because my original ones were done that same green color. That's just, I want to keep that looking uniform. So in case I ever play again, I have a force to play with, but it's been a good time. It's been fun. And again, there's something about just the secrecy mixed with, you know, the old lore. I do kind of wish they kept the American Indian lore of like 2 heads talking and all that, and how, you know, the reason why they went bone white was because they were facing a gene stealer invasion on Plains World, and they said, yep, our culture and our tribe does this for warriors who know they're going to die. We're going to do the same thing. So I do kind of miss that part of the lore. Has never been confirmed if it's still true or not. I don't know. But hopefully, as time progresses with the line being back and the Inner Circle companions totally not being the Risen, I kind of hope they can bring back some of the Chinobium or some of the Cataphractii as actual deployable units. And that could be a fun time for Deathwing. Or they can bring back Dreadwing or Ironwing, and that could be even more fun, so who knows. Well, hopefully you've enjoyed my rambling about the Deathwing for a little bit and about this project. Hopefully you keep viewing my things. Thanks to everybody who subscribed so far, and I'll keep doing my thing. Hopefully y'all enjoy. And if not, that's okay too. If I could cancel this recording, it might become some ending B-roll. There we go.